It's nice to be able to grow. Now you can grow your practice and you're not limited by, those four walls. You know that you can be flexible because in dentistry things change so rapidly. And if you don't have the ability to bring in a piece of equipment because you have no place to put it, and then you can't touch a wall because of your landlord, it's so much better to have control over your physical plant, because your physical plant supports your business. If you want your business to grow, you can't have one limit the other. So that's just my dumb thinking anyway, and that's how it works for us.
Today's podcast interview is with Sonny Spera, a dentist that has built his practice into 5 locations. He shares his experience with his first practice purchase to building a property from the ground up. He talks about lessons learned and considerations for other clinicians to consider when becoming a physician owner. Well, Sonny, welcome to my podcast called the Providers, Properties, and Performance podcast. And
That's a mouthful.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on yours a few weeks back.
I appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
So we'll start with just a little bit of background about you. So you're 100% New Yorker. You've finished your undergrad degree at Syracuse on a basketball scholarship, and then went to SUNY Buffalo for dental school. Do you want to share some of your background that isn't in your bio with the audience? And what did you get your undergrad degree at Syracuse before you became a dentist?
My undergrad degree was in chemistry, and in chemistry, as most people know, you got huge labs. So I took the general chemistry and organic chemistry. I had to take in the summer because I couldn't get to basketball practice and take those courses. So as a result of keeping that and a full-time schedule during school year, I was ready to graduate in 3 years. So I had to add a second major, which I figured, all right, well, I'm taking a bunch of psychology courses. Let me do that. So I took a second major in psych. So I was a chemistry major and then a psychology major. I'm the youngest of 3 kids. I have 2 older sisters. And in the Italian family, that's the sweet spot. Be the last born male child, and life is good from there on in. Yeah.
Are you well taken care of?
I'm spoiled rotten. I have 2 older sisters that looked after me. And then when I got married, my wife was like, you guys ruined him for me. And she's had everything she can do in the last 36 years to try to get me out of some things and bad habits. It ain't working.
You got a lot of untraining to do.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is she's making my plate for me at the reception. And my sister's like, why are you doing that? And she was like, because you used to do this for him. And now I have to do this. And I was like, hey, thank you.
That's funny. Okay, so you own 5 dental practices in Southern New York and Northeastern Pennsylvania with 6 doctors and 60 staff members.
Well, 7 doctors total, but yeah, 6
7.
other doctors,
okay,
plus me, yeah,
plus you. And and you didn't you say that your son is becoming a dentist?
Yeah, my son's in with us.
Yeah.
So
I want to talk to you about how you built up to 5 practices, and because I see and it particularly with dentists, but some other clinicians as well, where they are presented with a practice that might be underperforming, or the dentist is selling it because he or she is in a different age and stage of their life.
Sure.
And the real estate is wrapped into it.
I know.
But the price is so attractive that you get really excited and motivated about it. But then, like for instance, right now, there's a lot of sale leasebacks going on, or, the private equity market is buying practices, and, these clinicians are then now trying to sell the real estate, and they're realizing that when they bought it, there were some things that they didn't really pay attention to that are now causing the sale of the real estate to have some issues. So, so when you were presented, did you buy your first practice, or did you build a building and just open up your own practice?
No, I worked as an associate. I worked for 2 young dentists for 2 years. I started in August of 1989. My son was born September of 89. And I started practicing. So I was working for these 2 docs, and I have my daughter's born in May of 91, and then October 91, I bought my own practice. And I initially intended to say, why don't we buy this together? And this will be, we'll just make this, we'll have two offices, whatever. And they wanted nothing to do with it because it was out in the boondocks. It was out in the country, which was 6 miles from their practice. Or no, it wasn't. It was about 2 or 3 miles from their practice, but theirs was kind of in downtown Binghamton, and this was out in one of the suburbs, very close to the Pennsylvania border. And I just said, I think I can make this go. And then I always felt like I was going to run my own ship at some point anyway. And the partnership track there, it wouldn't have been a partner. It would have been a president, vice president. I would have been secretary. And it's just not my, yeah, it's not my DNA. I would much rather be driving the car than either a passenger or in the Italian family in the trunk, right? I would rather be driving the car. So that was a decision that I made. And to your point, I think when you were looking at the practice, because this came up, this was my first practice, so this was it. So I'm all in. I'm borrowing money from my father-in-law. I'm borrowing money from my dad. I'm at the bank. I'm borrowing money there. The owner carries some of the paper, et cetera, et cetera. And he was in the basement of a raised ranch, right? So you come in at the garage door. There's a little cubby door next to it, and you walk downstairs, and that's how you get to our office. And it was a 4 treatment room area. And I had a decent amount of people that came with me, and he had a pretty busy practice. He saw a lot of bodies in a short amount of time, which I was going to change, but needless to say, it was a busier practice. So I said, if I do this right, we're going to grow this thing. So he wasn't selling the real estate. He was selling the practice, but the real estate, he wanted me to buy it like in 5 years, and he wanted a 5-year lease. And I'll never forget, it was at the closing. And my wife said, we're not signing this 5-year lease. We're not going to be there 5 years. Like, we're outgrowing this place. And sure as hell, she was right, of course. And I hope she listens because she knows she's right. I'm hearing me say she's right. And my attorney was like, yeah, we're giving you your asking price to the nickel. We're not going to sign a 5-year lease. We'll sign a 1-year lease, 1-year renewal, or 2 years, whatever it was. I think it was 2 years. And so we did that, and immediately got in there and saw things going in the direction that I hoped they would go. I can't say I knew they would go. No one ever knows. I would hope that they went there. And then it was like, okay, I got to find a piece of property that I can build the office I think I'm going to need and allow for my growth. And we brought we were going to bring another doctor in. We knew it was going to be a 2-doctor practice because I was working probably 40 hours chairside. I had 2 nursing homes I contracted with outside, and I was probably doing 30 hours a week on all the paperwork, learning to run a business, right? Because now it's just your baby, right? Your hands on the flusher. So I found a property down the street. Turns out it's this main drag, and it's a small country town. There's 2 traffic lights, and I went through the 1 traffic light, and then just on the other side of it was a piece of property, was a house that was in the commercial zone. So we were going to buy it and redo it. And we knew that we bought that within 18 months. And then the plan was to add on to it, but it was in the flood zone, the 100-year floodplain. And we had it surveyed. So we went, and when we built it, we put a 40 by 60 addition onto the existing house, and we kept the house. We should have knocked the dang thing down, but we kept the house and we put on the addition, and we said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go right away to a 6 operatory or 6 treatment room area with a central sterilization that's truly handicap accessible and has a washer and dryer so we can launder the work, stuff. And knowing that, kind of this is the direction that dentistry really should be headed in, and not, working out of someone's apartment, or basement. And so that was our plan. That's what we did. Sure enough, don't we get flooded in 1994? No, and excuse me, 2006 we got flooded. 2006, and I was like, oh, this is the 100-year flood. They're like, no, this must be the 500-year floodplain. I was like, so it was really rattling because I didn't have flood insurance. So long story short, we bought that property. And at that point, the loans that I had from my practice, I'm a kind of I hate owing anybody. So I paid off my father-in-law. I paid off the bank as quickly as I could, and I paid off my dad. And then the next step was the bank. Now the bank, I've got good credit, so they're like, oh yeah, whatever you want to do with the building. So now it's a matter of how do you finance that? I really didn't want a mortgage. I really didn't want to go through all those costs. So I was like, well, what kind of can I get a 10-year business loan? And that's what we ended up doing. And at the time I was borrowing at prime, so it was flexible, but prime, not prime plus one, which was what they initially had me at my practice. And then I went to a different bank um, shortly thereafter. So, it's a big learning curve, but that's what we did. And the Italian background helps because we love real estate in the Italian culture. So, why rent when you're going to own? But the other part of it is in the dentist business, you are going to put so many capital improvements and plumbing and so many things in. It's hard to do that and then maybe walk away in 5 years. That's crazy.
And
So
even,
it's
yeah, and even 10 years though, to put all of that in and not own it and be able to refinance or have any
yeah,
flexibility,
right.
you know, so you get this first practice. So what was your experience buying your second practice?
Well, my second practice was okay. So let me describe geographically. So Binghamton, let's call that the city,
Mhm.
even though most people wouldn't, but that's the city. That's central. This is about 5, 6 miles southeast of it. That's where I'm practicing. I happen to live about 5 to 6 miles west of it. Okay. A little closer to where I grew up. And so when something came up in that town, I was like, oh, I really am interested. So I went to buy that practice. And the first practice was it was an older doctor and really kind of archaic. So we were like, okay, we'll buy it, but we can't move into your facility. That was not even on the table. But we knew there was another one around the corner that was a jewel, and that was the one I really kind of wanted to get into. But I had docs with me at the time. I had a partner in business at that time. His wife was working with us, and his one of his friends from dental school joined us, who's now probably my best friend and partner in a lot of things we do. Because the other partnership that didn't work, so that turned out to be a buyout fairly quickly because that was a big mistake at the time. But anyway, so we end up getting that other practice, and now we have a place to literally establish a second location that's geographically in two completely different neighborhoods. Now we're renting there, and I had a property with my sister and my dad that I said, geez, this could be a dental office, but it's not going to be big enough. So we're going to need to buy the place next to it and really blow this thing up and make it, what it is now. And since that time, we bought that, I'm going to say in 96. So 91, by my practice, 94, I moved into my new facility in that town. And then 96 bought the other practice. And about 98, we're in a new facility over there that we own. I buy my sister and my dad out, and we had to go through a few town loops, but then we bought the place next to it, and then we just again, we didn't knock it down. We're stupid, but we built a huge addition on the side of that and made it work. So
So you bought a practice or you just bought a building and expanded your own practice?
no, we bought a practice. I've always in those deals, I've always separated the business from the practice, and the
Yeah.
business, excuse me, from the real estate. And sometimes, like the one doctor that we bought that I didn't buy the real estate, had no interest in, he was of the mindset my real estate's worth everything. And it was like, no, your practice is the value, really the true
Right.
value in this, because that's what pays for everything else. So
Right.
in his office, and it was just, paneling on walls, carpet everywhere. It was 1960 maybe that he
Oh,
hadn't touched anything. So I was like, I'm not getting into this. And
right.
we were outgrowing it. Why would we go there? So the other practice was in a nice location. So we could rent, and that's what we did for a couple. And I knew what to do with the rental now. I knew don't take long-term leases because you're not going to stay. So we did a 1 year renewable at our option. And then we had a couple more options. So again, we knew we were in there, and then we worked diligently to get the other thing approved so we could move and then build what we wanted to. So that's what we did.
So you built, so you had to put, did you, so you took two separate properties and put them together?
In the end, yes, I took the one, and we took that right straight down, and then we just
Okay.
um, we put a large addition on the other one. Actually, yes, I took the two. I took the one house down completely, kept the small ranch that I had in my mind envisioned. Because when I bought that, I was working as an associate, and I was like, well, we could come over here because this is a nice area and traffic, and I kind of hoped that there would have been a change in the what do you call them, the laws or the rules. help me out. What's the word here? The
Zoning?
regulations,
Oh,
right? Whatever it is, the stipulations that, you can't have real estate, you can't have commercial here. You can only have the zoning.
zoning.
So I was hoping that that would change, which it has just fairly recently, but we got some variances. So yeah, we bought the place next to it and then we tore that down and we put a huge addition on. So it made it an L shaped. And if you see it from the road, it doesn't look big, but everybody comes in like, oh, this is so much bigger. And there's literally, when we finished that, we had 9 treatment rooms. Right. And then subsequent later, we ended up putting another addition on, added 3, 4 more treatment rooms, but we really only use 2 now. And the other is a different office. But yeah, so the real estate, it's nice to be able to grow. Now you can grow your practice and you're not limited by, those 4 walls. You know that you can be flexible because in dentistry things change so rapidly. And if you don't have the ability to bring in a piece of equipment because you have no place to put it, and then you can't touch a wall because of your landlord, it's so much better to have control over your physical plant because your physical plant supports your business. And if you want your business to grow, you can't have one limit the other. So that's just my dumb thinking anyway, and that's how it works for us.
So do you own the real estate for all 5 of your practices?
At this point, yes. Yes, the
And
last one.
had,
Yes.
did you build any from scratch or just the
Yes.
remodel?
Yeah.
So how
Yeah.
did that go? You had to get an architect, you had to hire a
I
GC.
I never hired an architect. I'll be honest with you. I had what I did again. I'm never the brightest person. So what I did was I laid out my floor plan,
Uh-huh.
and so having done that with the first office, okay, how are we going to fit these rooms in? How are we going to, what are we going to do with this addition, and how are we going to work the business area? And then now you're working in there. You're like, oh, okay, these treatment rooms, let's say they're 12 by 12. And you're like, they're bigger than I need. All right, what if I went 10 by 11 or 10 by 10? And if you go to a supply house, they're going to make everything convenient for you to buy more supplies, right? That's their business, not necessarily efficiently functioning. So then we're like, okay, so when we did the second office, when we added on, we changed a few of the dimensions. And then we are like, okay, this works, maybe a little bit more here. And each time we just tweaked the design. And if you went through them, you'd be like, oh, I can see what you're thinking here. I see what you did here. Oh, I see what you did here now. Because the last one we made is a 60 by 40, just a straight 60 by 40 building. And we put in 9 operatories in there.
Did you
And
use
it
modular
works.
furniture for that one?
No modular furniture, just design and layout. It's kind of circular. So the design and to me, it's got to have a flow. You got to come in, you got to have entrance point, private check-in area. Like to have something for the kids, either kids playroom, kids childcare room, handicap bathroom that's private, and then your treatment areas, your central sterile, and then you have an exit point that you can come, private conversation if it's financing, exit separately. And with the COVID situation, it worked out beautifully because we had separate entrances and exits that we designated now. So we had a flow. So
Yeah.
it wasn't hard to reestablish ourselves in that. So we kind of have kept that in mind. So from that, then I did work with an architect who's actually was a kid I coached when I was at the dental school. I was a basketball coach and he was an architecture student. So it was his first project was my office. His second project was my house. The poor guy should have been a marriage counselor for that one. But he designed it, and it was kind of fun because we'd sit there, and at that time was the old CAD CAM, software, and he would take his computer, he'd truck this thing up in his little Civic, and we'd sit because he was in Long Island, and we would go through everything, and we just kept tweaking it, and then I got better and better at it by working a little bit with the supply houses, like set up these dental rooms. And then, okay, now I have it. I would now show my builder who's on his 3rd or 4th office with me. And he's like, listen, just give me the floor plan. We can build the rest. And I was like, yeah, you're right. So that's what we did. And we wanted to make sure we had higher ceilings. We didn't want to close ceilings. We wanted 9+ in the hallways, at least, and the treatment rooms as high as we can get them, move the soffits up, and some designs that I thought were more for space and stuff like that. So, and then we designed the outside. So I used structural engineers. I used my contractor a lot, and I relied on him a lot. And then we played with the design outside, and it was a little bit, I take it back. I did use that architect. I used him a little bit, but not as much in the third one, which we built straight from scratch because we had an idea what we wanted. And then my builder had some suggestions on, okay, you want a covered area, let's put a couple pillars here, and let's make this for your entranceway. Oh, that makes sense. And then let's make a smaller one for the employee. Oh, that, so in laying it out, he had some people that did some drawings and workups, and it was the guy who drew the plans from the floor plan.
Yeah,
So
because
he
you had to
created
have
the
plans
plan.
to submit to the city to get a permit.
Yes.
So someone had to draw some plans up.
Yeah, and then we had the drawings, so then you have the elevations, front, side, all
Yeah.
that stuff. And that's where you tweaked it. And it was still on a computer, so it wasn't hard to modify.
Right. So for other practitioners out there that they're looking to, start to own the real estate, be physician owners and own their own real estate, what are some lessons learned that you would recommend that they pay attention to, before just sort of heading into the project?
Well, for me, like I said, for me, the most important thing was separate the business from the real estate
Mhm.
and look at them both independently. And the business is worth X, and the building is worth Y. Now, the building is going to be worth more because of your usage. And if you think you're going to get it like apples and apples, you're not, because it's hard to find a dental office in that location, and compare it. But you'll get some reasonable comps, and they'll always be more than you think it's worth. You'll be like, oh, that's way more than it should be. But that's what it is. You can't really argue too much about it. I would say, once you make the commitment to buying it, make sure you have the ability to either grow and expand. So don't be locked in. Don't say, well, this is max. You are at 3,000 square feet and the property will not allow for 300 more. You're going to be locked at some point. If you're successful, you're going to be up against it. And now you got to do it all over again and move, because you're going to invest a lot in all the things that make it your dental office. In our case, now physicians, it may not be as much plumbing or as equipment, and maybe it's a little more kind to moving things around. But in dentistry, you really, when you go in, you're all in because of the amount of plumbing, electrical. Like, for example, you're going to put a X-ray unit on a wall. Is it going to be a shared wall? Oh, if it's a shared wall, it's got to be a 2x6. You can't have a 2x4. And then okay, are you going to have a child area? Oh, child area. Oh, we want to have it soundproof or sound dead. Oh, well, then you got to build a wall within a wall to create, you know, um, not allow for noise to bang around, so to speak. So now your walls are not, so your 10 by 10 rooms, not really 10 by 10 rooms, because they built another wall on top of it. Maybe it's 9 by 9.5. And now you're really squeezed in that room. So did you plan for it? And then you add equipment. Do you have room for carts? Do you have enough closet storage? All those things, because the business changes. And in 5 or 10 years from now, I'm going to be practicing completely different. I need to have a facility that I can do that, comfortably. So that's what I like about it. So my advice there is make sure it's expandable and adaptable without killing yourself.
And what about location? So when you looked at these
Yeah, location's huge.
different locations, was it important for you to have visibility? Was it,
Yes.
obviously parking?
Yes.
And
Parking.
you have to consider that there's going to be snow, so you can't have people can't have to climb up a lot, up a high elevation, because they'll just fall back down. So all of these things. And do you like to be near a light or near like other commercial retail businesses? Does that matter to you?
Well, to me, I follow Howard Ferran's models, and what he says makes perfect sense. Dental appointments are made by the female 90% of the time. So, and where does a woman go twice a week? Grocery store. So if you're in close proximity to a grocery store, huge plus, because you're on the traffic line, the grocery store, the school, especially if you have a family-based practice.
Yeah.
You want to be convenient, and you do want to be visible, contrary to what a lot of dental people will say. Well, you're a destination, they'll come find you. Well, there's a reason why Kohl's and Best Buy and these, you name whatever chain you want to think of, Fridays, Starbucks. I mean, Starbucks in every corner. But if you went, think of just every town has them. They've got, okay, there's a Dick's Sporting Goods, there's a Walmart, Oh, what's next door? Oh, next door is a Lowe's building supply. It's where that traffic is. So that's one concept. But to me, you want to have it where I think you're going to get the traffic of the people who make the appointments. So we are on main streets as much as we can, even though again we're in some smaller towns, but we're on, in one town we literally have, well, there's one traffic light. They just added another one a couple years ago, and that's a small country town. Two traffic lights. We're in a small town north of here that's got, I think it's got about six traffic lights, but those are smaller communities, and we're on the main street. So you can tell people, listen, you know where that school is? It's right there. We're 3 blocks from McDonald's. Oh, okay. Down here, we're on the main drag. We're right down from the courthouse. We're right across the street from the movie theater. We're on Hooper Road. We're half a block from the high school. We're 2 blocks from the credit union. Oh, I know that credit. Yeah, everybody goes to that credit union. And there's a Weiss grocery store. Oh, there's a park right there. Yeah, we're right there. So I think that's essential. I think you want to be convenient, and to me, parking is crucial. You got to have parking. And I know that it's in some cities that's really hard to do, but and then we had the last practice that we ended up buying the building that was very limited in the parking. And so I've had to work out agreements like with the church, and a lot of my team parks at the church, the bank next door to us, and then the garbage, and a few other things. I want to make sure patients are not looking for parking spaces.
Right.
So, we have to modify what we do, but that's essential. It's convenience and location is
Yeah. And well, and it
essential.
helps you too to keep everybody on track. Cause if people are late looking for parking, then you're delayed and you get
Yeah,
backed up.
yeah. And it's also like, if you pulled up, right, and I'm a doctor's office, and you pulled up and there's 15 spaces, of which 10 are, 12 feet from the building, and there's 5 or 8 that are 30 yards from the building, and every space that's open is 30 yards, and everybody parking in another space is everybody working there. That's you're not putting your patients first,
Right.
right? So we always park in the remote, way out of the way spaces, and it's very clear these are all for you. And I think that's our philosophy in our practice. So you have to practice what you preach. You can't say, oh yeah, yeah, by the way, Dr. Park's right here.
Right.
No, you park as far away as the next person, because your value is in your patients. So that's how you show
I like that. Sonny, I would disappoint you. My husband takes over all the dentist stuff in our house because my mother-in-law was a dentist. So I think he has to make sure that he tells her that he's getting our kids' teeth cleaned.
Yes. Oh, the guilt works. That's an Italian trait too. That's an Italian mother guilt. Oh gosh. Yeah.
She's Latin, yeah. So
Yeah. That works. Very common. Italian and Jewish families are also very similar. Yep. That's how it
um,
works.
so we'll move into a little bit of Q&A to get to know
Sure.
you a little bit more. So what was your first job?
My first job. Oh boy. Well, I can't really call it that, but it was a paper boy. I was awful. My first real job that I actually did, actually did the work I was supposed to, was I worked at a bakery, and it was a friend of mine. And I started working there because I used to sleep over his house. We'd go out and party, and we were like, oh, hungover. And we're like, all right, let's go in. So I started working there on Saturdays and Sundays. Whenever I slept over, I knew I'd work the next morning. So then I got the job every Sunday morning, had to be there 5:30. Didn't matter what you did on Saturday, you had to be there at 5. And it was just a great experience. It taught me a lot of things. Work ethic. We worked from 5 to 12, 5 to 1, 5 to, it didn't matter. You worked when you were done, you were done. And you could
Yeah.
get something to eat, but you didn't have time breaks. You weren't, doing anything that, oh, hey, listen, I worked 2 hours. I got to have an hour break, and have a coffee break. No, no, we just worked and had fun, and taught me a lot. And it was a great job. That was my first job.
Yeah. So I'll tell you the two things I think I miss the most from the East Coast is the pizza dough
Yep.
and the bakeries, especially bagels. I know bakeries
Yep.
obviously have a lot more things, but it is really hard in Arizona to find a really good bagel. There's a couple of places, but it's still not the same.
The key is the water and the makeup of the dough.
Yeah.
That's the key.
What would you be doing for a living if you were not a dentist?
I'd be a basketball coach.
Oh.
Hard to say I'd make a living at that, though. I'll be honest with you, because that's hard. But that would be a dad or a teacher, or I'd be working with kids in some capacity. I just love the next generation. I just love seeing them. And that's what makes basketball so much fun. You see a kid get it and their light bulb goes off and that spark. And you see a little bit of yourself in these kids and you're like, hey, I'm helping that next generation. Somebody helped me somewhere along the line. So it's great to just give it back. So that
Yeah.
would be it.
What or who are you reading or listening to right now for news, information, or inspiration?
Ooh, news. I try not to listen to too much news. I'm bad about that. My wife's complaining all the time. Can we put something on that's the news? Can we get something the news? We haven't heard the news. I'm like, come on, just check out. It'll be on Facebook. It'll run through it. Just
Yeah.
watch what you want. So for me, inspiration. I follow a bunch of things on Twitter, and I put a little something on my Facebook every day. A little quote, a little something that is inspiring. Like today's was all about relationships and not you don't want someone who likes you just the good in you. You want someone likes all of you and loves you for that. So just little things like that. So the thing I'm reading right now, a couple books I'm reading right now. I was reading the book Grit by Angela Duckworth. Atomic Habits. A friend of mine told me to read that. So I'm like 60-70% through that one. And then I want to start reading that Michael Bennett, the new James Patterson book about Michael Bennett, the New York City police officer. I kind of him and Bosch. I can't read enough of those guys, and now Bosch is on TV, so that's another guilty pleasure. So those are the things. The inspirations I look for me, it's people I admire. Like I talked Howard Ferrand, Gordon Christensen, some of the people that I look up to that were mentors to me. I love them. Basketball coaches, John Wooden. You can never go wrong with a John Wooden quote. Those kind of things. It just, make you a better person.
Yeah. What is one thing you do every day for healthy self-care?
I look up and find a positive thought and something that hits me, and then that's what I share on Facebook. So I make sure that it's something that is meaningful to me, and then I just share it with everybody. So that's something I do every day, even when I'm on vacation. My wife's not happy about it, but
You got to take the bad with the good, huh?
hey, 36 at this point, right? Figure it out. I ain't changing.
Do you think a person is born with the desire to heal, or is this only learned through their training? Like as a dentist, do you feel like you were born with a desire to help people with their teeth, or do you feel?
That is a great question. Are you born with that desire? This is nature nurture. I think you are, but I also think it can be cultivated. Like I think with so many people I've interviewed in different in their upbringing, you can really see, okay, your parents were this, you were that, and they kind of help set the stage for a lot of that. But I also think if it's not in you, I think it's hard to completely manufacture it. Although I do think you can influence someone.
Mhm.
I do, but I think the want to help somebody that should be innate in everybody. I think, which is again just a dumb thought, but that's how I feel. Everyone should have that inside them that you have to make the world a better place by helping your fellow man or woman. So to me, I think it's innate, but I do feel that there's a definitely a strong sense of being able to teach people that.
Mhm. Yeah. Do you do orthodontics at all?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's like, I would, obviously the dentistry is for big dental problems, but I would think that, especially if it's a young person getting their, they come in, their teeth are all mangled. And then at the end
Yeah.
of their treatment, they have this wonderful smile and like the self-confidence that they get
Yeah.
from that.
Yeah, that kind of stuff, the cosmetics, the smile the makeover type of things. Like we do a Mother's Day makeover that they have moms that are all nominated by their children, and we pick one and we do everything, and then we usually pick another one and we do a few things to help get them out of trouble or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And yeah, the joy and satisfaction of that's because you've changed a life,
Yeah.
and when a person, like you said, like a person with their smile, I think the number is 80% of people it's their first impression is almost based on what they see in their smile.
Yeah.
And you can pick up someone, even sometimes like their hairstyles will change. They'll cover a side of their face if they have something they don't like on like the right side of their mouth. All of a sudden they'll have hair hanging down. And you'll start to pick up on, even if you're not a dentist, you'll just say it's a little different. But then all of a sudden you see that fix, and hair changes, and poof, they smile. And then it's so funny when you do a lot of these kind of fix up and makeovers. Women will go back to work and everybody say, "Did you change your hair? What'd you do? You changed your hair. You did something with your hair. You colored it. You did something." Every guy goes back, "Hey, yeah, your teeth fixed. Look at you." You know, it's so funny, so funny. I swear to God. Yeah, they're gonna tell you got your hair done. So just tell them, hey, I got my smile done.
I got my teeth fixed.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Sonny, this has been a wonderful interview. I really appreciate your time. This has been a
Oh, my pleasure. A lot of fun.
conversation.
Thank you.